I don't know if you heard this, but The Acolyte was canceled. What's more, the fans of The Acolyte are reacting in the worst way possible, blaming people out in the world, maybe even like you and me, for the show being canceled. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. Hello, I am Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, and here with me is my Wiki co-pilot, Mr. VashSky. Vash, are you ready to punch it?
I'm ready to punch it right now, talking about, well, I wish we were talking about the Force, Jonas, but we're going to be talking about the thread here, and the thread that binds them all apparently upset fans.
Yeah, and that thread is going to be cut here. Acolyte stands meltdown and blame, and I'm quoting here, racist, sexist people after the show is reportedly scrapped. Viewership data was abysmal. I don't know many people who were actually racist or sexist against this show. I'm going to say right here, I think that's cope. You know, maybe we could read the whole article and come to that conclusion, but I don't think it was racism or sexism that was the problem with this show's reception. This by John F. Trent from That Park Place. Look at that right there. It's either May or Osha, and over here is Kamir, played by Manny Jacinto. May their characters rest in peace. Numerous stands for The Acolyte who seemingly did not even watch the series, given the show's abysmal viewership, freaked out and melted down after it was reported the show had been canceled. Look at that right there. A man in a dress and a woman with the power shoulders right there. Oh, look at that. Some nice big boots. Deadline's Nelly Andreeva reported that the show was canceled. She wrote, "The story of The Acolyte will not continue, with Lucasfilm opting not to proceed with a second season of the Star Wars offshoot starring Amandla Stenberg," sources tell Deadline. The report came after Nielsen released its data for the week the Acolyte series finale aired. The show only managed to garner 335 million minutes watched. That was less than the 2-episode premiere, which brought in 488 million minutes watched. It had the least minutes watched of any live-action Star Wars series finale on Disney Plus. I'm going to point out, just for clarity right here, this is people watching any available episode for the series. The 335 million minutes watched here is over the entire 8 episodes for just that week. Vash, you contributed to that 335 million watch minutes, did you not?
I unfortunately did, and I will say there's just no redeeming quality for that show. I think a lot of people, I think what happened was, and here's kind of the argument up against these people who are necessarily saying, oh, well, you know, it's all these bad people who came out and hate watched the show, and that's why, and disparaged it online. Well, hang on a second. It did kind of pop up there just for a little bit for those first 2 episodes, the first 2-episode premiere that occurred initially when this series premiered. And then it kind of maybe peaked at around episode 3. And then it just trailed off tremendously after that. So is that the racists or any number of names that they use for this whole thing, is it their fault that people just dropped off after episode 3? Or was it a genuine curiosity to see where this series might go? And once people found out where it was going, they just kind of fell off naturally. I think the latter is the case.
I think you have a point there, Vash, in that there are horrible people out there, and there will always be horrible people on the internet. But the idea that the only reason that someone could dislike this show was misogyny or racism, I think that is giving way too much credit to those people, because there are shows that have a black cast or have a diverse, for lack of a better term here, talking about different sexual orientations and incorporating pronouns and all of the things that would be traditionally associated with, for lack of a better term, wokeness right here. There are some of those that are still successful. This one right here was not successful. And I'm just going to say the writing, the writing was really not good. And there were a couple of moments here where it started to maybe trend for a moment in that right direction, but it really didn't make sense when it came down to it. You have a show that's based around a mystery that's not really a mystery. You have characters that flip-flop back and forth on motivations, and there's no real reason given for why they flip-flop back and forth on those motivations. I'm also going to point out that the review data here on IMDb correlates to those view minutes there. Nielsen's viewership numbers reflect a significant decline in reviews per episode of the series on IMDb. The first episode received 26,000 reviews, while the finale only received 11,000. Not only did the show receive poor viewership, but those who did watch it did not like it. The show has a 4.1 out of 10, with the plurality of reviews being 1 out of 10. The unweighted mean is a 3.7. Look at that right there. 1 star out of 10, or whatever the IMDb rating system is. Now, I'm going to read a couple of tweets here, and I'm going to edit them just a little bit because this is a PG channel. Here you can at least see the tweet that they are quoting here. The Acolyte has been canceled after season 1. And then there's an account here called Lost Glass Guitar that says, genuinely insane to me, by the way. Forget the racist, sexist people who couldn't share a single brain cell and turn an eye away to what they didn't like. The review bombing and harassing that so many committed without even watching it. Insane to me. Hashtag renew the Acolyte. No, I'd like to see the Acolyte renewed myself. If the idea here is don't watch it, well, that would be what happened. Essentially, most people did not watch the show. Here's one that I think that I can put on screen without alerting the censors here. Sawyer with a purple heart says, hashtag renew the Acolyte at Sawyerism. I need to hear it from Star Wars themselves, and they need to explain why they're canceling the only show with a predominantly non-white queer cast that had incredible viewership from audiences that would never have tuned into Star Wars previously. So I think this admits the argument right here, doesn't it? That Star Wars is a thing that Disney essentially did not do here. And Star Wars, the most popular film franchise in history, arguable, depending on how you view that, but I'd say it's true, that Disney is going for a different audience outside of Star Wars. Vash, what's your take on this?
This is a strange one to me because I think it was Midnight's Edge who recently came out with a video on this. And in that video, they included some footage from the release of Return of the Jedi back in, 1983 now? Mm-hmm. Featuring a lot of interviews from fans who were either in line or just coming out of the theater from that film's premiere. And it was very diverse. There were a lot of ethnicities actually represented, a lot of different peoples actually represented. So this idea that people wouldn't normally tune into the show unless it represented me, I don't think that's really ever been the case. Look, I can just tell you right now, Jonas, nobody represents me in terms of my genetic makeup or who I am as a person. I've never really seen that represented in any form of cinema, media, entertainment. You can go down the gamut there. And yet I've had no problem resonating with some amazing stories, especially Star Wars, that really speaks to the human inside of all of us. And so well, Joseph Campbell, all that. So this idea that it's like, these people would never have tuned in had there not been representation on screen in this tweet right here. I don't buy that premise. I don't buy that argument.
Right. I would say that this is a very dangerous worldview. The idea that you have to be represented on screen in order to enjoy something. And again, it goes to the idea that representation is the most important thing above everything else. I think even let's just say from a marketing standpoint, I don't think that's been borne out. Yes, it is probably wrong if all of the characters ever are white, straight males, then maybe you're going to have a problem on your hands. But if you're talking about representation and you really think it's true that white people have to see white people on screen, or white people have to see white straight males on screen, then from a marketing standpoint, you should probably have some white male characters that are not complete buffoons. That being said, I don't think that's really the case. I think if you have a black character or a black male character that does all the things that a white male character does, people are still going to show up to the box office and buy a ticket for it or tune in to the TV show. There are so many amazing actors out there that you forget about their skin color when you're watching their role. I don't want to get into a conversation about, see, this guy's fine. Because someone will just swat that down and say, it's just Denzel. He reads white or something ridiculous like that. Let's go to the next one. We could put this one up. This from @MKenobi. Also, this just fuels the toxic side of the fandom into thinking if they hate on something enough, they can get it canceled. This is not a W for the community. I don't know. The part of the fandom that really dislikes this show and is not toxic about it is being quiet about it and is also not tuning into this show. Vash?
Well, it's a false premise here. They conflated the hate, the outrage for this show, and insisted that it had any effect on this show's prospects whatsoever. So, off of that false premise, they're now saying, "Oh, well, you see, they're winning." You see, and it's like, no. It's not about winning, losing. It's not about hate watching or haters or all that. Did it find an audience? Did it push Disney subscribers? Did it push ad revenue? Did it show up on the Nielsen charts? If all of those answers to those questions are no, I mean, that's really the bottom line right here. So this idea that it's like, oh, well, win L's and well, the haters, you see, it's all nonsense, Jonas. This is all ridiculous. Did it actually find an audience, and did people tune into it week after week? They did not. And that's why this thing is being canceled. And these people who are tweeting right here are just living in such a delusion, fantasy land. It's wild, but it explains their outbursts.
Right. And I would also say, for those of you that are bemoaning the idea of a culture war and that everything becomes a culture war issue, if you view all of the properties that you watch on screen with the idea that it needs to be representative, it needs to be making a cultural movement, then you are participating in a culture war. You can't just watch something. Then I think that speaks to how much you want there to be a culture war. And if you want there to be a culture war and you want the other side to give up, well, then that is, I think that means you want a culture war, but you want it to be a surrender on the part of the other side. Whereas, okay, maybe the other side is interested in a culture war, but it's more taking back the culture. So admit what you're doing here, admit what your biases are, and admit what you are wanting and seeking when you say things like, oh, here's a good one. This one from CEO of Corey at Corey's Verse, canceled over misogyny and racism, by the way, because this could have easily been some of the best current Star Wars content we're going to get. People who are interested in good Star Wars are the ones who lose out from the existence of a show like The Acolyte.
It's not even like a show that is good in its own way, divorced from the Star Wars universe. It's just a bad show overall with the Star Wars label on it, essentially. I mean, it's the best Star Wars ever. What? Right. This is a bad show.
And I'll point out, CEO of Corey would tend to partially agree with you. Star Wars content being the same boring blaster pew-pew media for years, and we finally get a show diving into Jedi Sith lore, and y'all get it canceled because the lead isn't a white man. No, the Jedi and the Sith are apparently not present here, or is Sith a slur? There's no great lore reveals here. They stuck Pelagius in here, and that's about all you get.
And a lot of that lore had been developed in so much other content before even Disney got its grubby paws on this. What are you talking about? This is wild. The Sith lore that he's referring to is expanded universe content that was already established, and that's why Leslye included it in there, because she was apparently a fan herself and wanted to see these things realized.
Yeah. There is a lot more takes if you're interested in that. In the article itself on That Park Place, John Trent does a great job of cataloging all of that. You should go see what's going on over there. And of course, there are updates here on the channel and of course on the website for everything going on with The Acolyte, including Disney trying to wipe it from the Disney Store website and then backpedaling a little bit. We're going to talk about that in another video. For those of you who have comments, please leave them in the comment section down below, or you can even share this video out on Twitter and tag me at Jonas J. Campbell or over there at VashSky and let us know your thoughts. Like this video if you like this video, and consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.